Welcome to Bloke Talk, where we talk all things music, and today I'm going to tell you where I've been for the last 6 months. So for the last 6 months I've been living over in Bahrain. Now prior to being over there, I'd never even heard of Bahrain before, so I did some Googling to find out what I was getting myself into. So it turns out Bahrain is in the Persian Gulf. It was formerly known as Dilmun and linked the trade between Mesopotamia and India. In the 7th century, Muhammad sent a messenger to Bahrain to preach Islam, and it became one of the first Muslim countries. In the 10th century, the Karmarians were overtaken and a new era begun with the Persian Ulmas, who made a shit ton of money transporting slaves from Africa into Persia. But then the Portuguese rocked up in the 15th century and seized the land and the valuable Gulf trade network. For 2 centuries, constant battles would occur between the Omanis and the Persians, almost wiping out the entire population of Bahrain. Then in the 17th century, the Al Khalifa clan took over and have ruled Bahrain to this day. So I wanted to see what Bahrain had to offer, so I looked up top things to do in Bahrain. First on the list was the Tree of Life. Now there are a few stories about this tree, some saying that it dates back to the Garden of Eden, some saying that that is completely false and the tree is only a couple of hundred years old, some even saying that the tree's been moved and replaced. But the main attraction for this tree is that somehow it's staying alive without any known water source in the middle of nowhere. So I jumped in a car to see what all the rage was about. The first thing I saw when going out there is all these oil fields, which was pretty crazy. Then it's just pure desert until out of nowhere a tree appears. So here at the Tree of Life, just pulled up. It's pretty impressive that this thing sort of has grown for so many years. So this is it here. It's really hot. Let's check it out. It was funny seeing the visitor centre at the front of the tree. It's literally just a slab of concrete with a sign on it. If the Tree of Life was in Australia and it was one of the top tourist attractions to see in the country, that visitor centre would have a massive souvenir shop on it. It'd be selling all kinds of cheap stuff. I'd be walking away with a Tree of Life shirt, a hat, a mini bonsai Tree of Life. But I like their style, very minimalist. Keeps the eyes on the tree. When you get closer to the tree, you can tell that this tree has seen some time. It's super old. But there's also something a little bit magical about standing under it. It might just be the 50-degree heat outside and it's just good to stand under some shade, but it also might be that very slight chance that it was in the Garden of Eden and there's some spiritual presence still surrounding it. All I know is one of the things the locals told me was you should never touch the tree. It will bring you bad luck. I thought I'd test this theory out by picking a few leaves. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Now off to the next thing on the list. Go-karting. Bahrain hosts an F1 race every year, and right next to the F1 track is one of the best go-karting tracks I've ever seen. I went with a couple of mates to cut some laps. This track was amazing. I wanted to see if I could get the fastest lap and was making some good time right until the end when I spun out. I couldn't believe it, such bad luck. Next thing on the list was to head to the souk, which is Arab for marketplace, and do a bit of shopping. This is the place to go to get your souvenir fix. They have all the camel teddies, lamps, rugs, as well as cheap gold and cheap suits. I got a couple of cheap suits, not sure I'll ever wear them, but they were cheap. It was just good to walk through the shops and see the different things and talk to the locals. The Bahraini people are extremely friendly and kind-hearted. People have asked me if I've noticed any changes since I've been back to Australia, but I haven't really noticed any difference. I mean, I'm dressing the same, I'm eating the same foods, I pretty much slotted into the exact same routine I was in before. Hey Amanda, have you seen my prayer mat? Next thing to check out was the pottery markets. This was one of the most fascinating things I've seen. There was some bloke ploughing out hundreds of pots all by hand and they were exactly the same. They looked incredible. I bought a pot to bring back to Australia, but on the way back to my accommodation, I dropped the pot and it broke. I couldn't believe the bad luck I was getting. One thing that was lucky was the burial mounds were right next to the pottery market, so we went and checked those out real quick. They used to make these keyhole shaped mounds out of dirt to bury royalty royalty, kinda like a poor man's pyramid. They've been listed as heritage, so houses have just built around these mounds. The burial mounds were interesting to look at, but it was now time to hit the water slides. I couldn't believe that there was a water park in the Middle East, and it's actually pretty decent. Since COVID restrictions were enforced, they were only allowing 30 people in at a time, so there was 0 lines to get on the rides. So good. Final things to do on the list was the museum and the fortress. Now the museum was on the way to the fortress from our accommodation, so me and my mate Bormy thought we would kill 2 birds with 1 stone and go for a walk to check him out. So we got a little bit lost trying to get to this fort. It's now starting to get a little bit dark, and we realised that we've gone a few k's in the wrong direction. We're now pretty much at the airport, but it's all part of the fun. Nice little view from up here, I guess. I mean, there's definitely worse places to get lost, but we'll try and make our way back. And the fort closes in half an hour, so we'll try and get in there before it closes. So after we got lost, we made our way back on track, but unfortunately, by the time we got to the fort, the GoPro batteries had died, so I couldn't get any footage inside the actual fort. I couldn't believe the bad luck I was having. First the spinning go-karts, then the broken pots, then the dead batteries. It was like I had some kind of bad luck curse or something. Wait a minute. Thanks for watching. It's really good to be back. I'm going to start making some more vids, so if you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do. Peace!